Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. In the previous lecture, we have discussed about 10 features of gymnosperms, 9 features of gymnosperms. Yesterday, we have discussed up to secondary growth in gymnosperms. Today, we will take up the reproductive part. That is 10th feature. Gymnosperms. The gymnosperms are heterospores. Like pteridophytes, gymnosperms are heterospores. The gymnosperms are heterospores, that is, produce two types of spores, produce two types of spores, बल्कि two different types of spores. The male microspores or microspores called male spores, microspores, and female megaspores. The male microspores and female megaspores. And what we can say, gymnosperms are heterospores, that is, produce two different types of spores. One spore is smaller, that is called a male spore or microspore, and another spore, that is a larger one, that is called megaspore, or that is also called a female megaspore or female spores. These spores, the spores are born inside sporangia. Spores are born inside sporangia. Spores are born inside sporangia. As I have already told you, sporangia are the spore bearing producing parts. And these, we have two types of spores, so we have two types of sporangia, that is microsporangia or male sporangia and female sporangia or megasporangia. Microsporangia produces male spores or microspores. Megasporangia produces megaspores or female spores. These two types of spores, they are produced on special types of leaves, special leaf-like structures. These sporangia, that is male and female sporangia, are produced in special leaf-like structures, but what we can say, in special leaves. In special leaves, these are actually special leaves. These are the special leaf-like structures called sporophylls. And sporangia are produced in special leaf-like structures or in special leaves called sporophylls. That means we have two types of sporophylls. Microsporophylls, we produce microspores, that is male spores, and megasporophylls, which produce megaspores. Number 12. These sporophylls, that is the leaf-bearing sporangia, sporophylls are aggregated. Sporophylls are aggregated in the form of compact cones. These sporophylls are aggregated in the form of compact cones or strobili or lex. These we also call as lex. And these sporophylls are arranged in the form of special structures called cones, strobili, or lex. And the cones of these gymnosperms are generally unisexual. And we have a separate male and female cone. These cones are generally unisexual. The cones are generally unisexual. Number 13th feature. the gametophytic generation is much more reduced. Chunki female coons produce female these gametes and male produces male. The gametophytic generation is much more reduced, is very much reduced, is much more reduced. That is, it is very reduced. It is much more reduced, represented by microspores, that is pollen grains, and megaspores only. Because microsporangia produce microspores, megasporangia produce megaspores, and these gametes which represent the gametophytic generation, this gametophytic generation in gymnosperms is much more reduced, represented by microspores, that is pollen grains, and megaspores only. Represented by microspores and megaspores only. Both these gametophytes, that is micro and megaspores, both these gametophytes depend completely on sporophytes for nutrition. And in gymnosperms, the gametophytic generation represented by micro and megaspores only, it is completely dependent on sporophyte for nutrition. Number 14th feature, the microsporangia produces light pollen grains, and pollination is generally anemophilous. Because these are light in weight, pollen grains are light in weight, so they are simply transport from male to female with the help of wind. That is, they are wind pollinated. Pollination is anemophilous. However, in Pinaceae, the pollen grains are winged. This is a special feature. In case of Pinaceae, pollen grains are winged. Winged pollen grains have been reported in Pinaceae. This question is often asked in the entrance examinations, that pollen grains are winged in which of the following? That is, in Pinaceae, pollen grains are winged. Number 15th feature, the ovules are orthotrophs. Orthotrophs means straight. The ovules are orthotrophs, that is straight. Ovules are orthotrophs, that is straight ovule, and unitegmic. Generally, an ovule is surrounded by one, two, or many coverings. We call them as integuments. In gymnosperms, the ovule is generally unitegmic. It is generally unitegmic. The ovules are orthotrophs, that is straight and unitegmic. 16th feature is the female gametophyte. The female gametophyte forms two or more orchigonia. Which we call as female sex organs. Produce two or more female sex organs, also called orchigonia, which provide nutrition which ultimately provides nutrition. They provide nutrition to the developing embryo, which provide nutrition to the developing embryo, and later gets transformed into a food-laden tissue, gets transformed into a food-laden tissue called endosperm, into the seed, and the female gametophyte forms 2 or more archegonia, that is female sex organs, which provide nourishment to the developing embryo, and later it gets transformed into a food-laden tissue called endosperm inside the seed. Number 17th feature, the endosperm. The endosperm of Gymnosperms is haploid. It is haploid, that is gametophytic. The endosperm of Gymnosperm is haploid, that is it is gametophytic, while as it is triploid in angiosperms. And this endosperm is haploid. Why? Because it is produced before fertilization. While as in angiosperm it is produced after fertilization. These are some of the salient features of gymnosperms. Let me repeat. 10th feature is the gymnosperms are heterospores, that is produce 2 different types of spores, the male microspores and female megaspores. The spores are born inside the sporangia. Sporangia are produced in special leaf-like structures called sporophylls. Sporophylls are aggregated in the form of compact cones, tubular legs. The cones are generally unisexual. The gametophytic generation is much more reduced, represented by microspores, that is pollen grains, and megaspores only. Both these gametophytes completely depend for nutrition on sporophytes. The microsporangia produce light pollen grains, and pollination is anemophilous. However, in Pinaceae, the pollen grains are winged. The ovules are orthotrophs, that is straight and unitary.